And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. That is Coffee Talk Live. That is, it is time once again for an open discussion about what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some clips from the news and having some dialogue with some of the people that are able to join us in the live portion that takes place Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, simultaneously broadcasting on Coffee Talk, and that is at Coffee Talk Live, and Prepper University at Prepper University on YouTube. You can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Coffee Talk Chat, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon, unless otherwise noted. So, no felines in the room today. Sorry, folks. I know some people like to keep track of the shelter cats that we take care of, but no one's in here keeping me company at the moment, unfortunately. And as always, I do try to read through as many of the comments as is reasonable for the benefit of those of you who are listening and not able to see, so that you can keep up with the conversation. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of those people that have chimed in so far. I see Helter is here today, as well as Dragon and Brian throwing their hats in the ring, as it were, as well as Stacy just joining us. Glad you could make it today. People that have chosen to say hello, if for lack of a better description. Michael is here as well. Glad you could join us today as we get ready to jump off into the news, into the realm of the ridiculous, as it were. Notation, special notation. I see Boogers is here also. Yesterday, and this is me being mean again. Here we go. Yesterday, while my wife and I were out, because, I did the podcast early yesterday to accommodate, because my wife and I had something to do, and I didn't want the regular schedule time to overlap. So we're out, and while we were out, we decided to drop into a Dairy Queen. Haven't been to a Dairy Queen in forever. Okay, the last time we were at a Dairy Queen was like maybe sometime last year. I don't even recall exactly, because we don't do that sort of thing very often, and we don't eat out really, and we don't go to places like that very often. And it occurs to me that this place was packed. Dairy Queen was loaded. It looked like a bus station. They the majority of people that were in there looked like they had no business being in a Dairy Queen. They were obese, some of them morbidly so. There was a couple of people there that looked like they were turning the page at 400 pounds. And, I'm like, why are you here? That's the last thing you need. Dairy Queen is the last thing you need. Hell, we don't really need it, but we don't do that sort of thing very often. We don't do that sort of thing very often. It's like, why are you here? Why is this a regular thing for you? Why am I looking at a guy who looks like he weighs close to 300 pounds in a wheelchair, wearing a wife beater with with one of those implants for diabetes on the back of his arm, sitting there with a large moo latte milkshake? Dude, you don't need that. Seriously. I see Unknown Noses here, as well as Doc Galt and Monkey. Brian says, I guess that's why we are the fattest nation in the world. Yeah, indeed. I mean, like I said, my wife and I didn't need to be there, but my wife and I are fit, and we can absorb something like that occasionally. Like I said, the last time we were in Dairy Queen was like sometime last year. I don't even remember how long ago. And we probably won't go back because we didn't have a good experience with it. Both of us had this sensation after having our shakes, because we both just got a shake, that's it, that it didn't feel right. You know how sometimes you can eat or drink something and you don't get sick necessarily, but it just doesn't feel right? Does that make sense? That's the sensation that we got from it. And I was just like, yeah, you know what? We probably don't need to come back here. It's a shame when you can't make a milkshake, because I don't typically have that kind of reaction to any kind of ice cream or dairy product. but something about it didn't feel right to me after I drank it, and she felt the same way. But yeah, this just seemed to be a lot of people there. Didn't need to be there. It's like you almost want to herd them out. It's like, hey, excuse me, I'd hate to be a pain in the ass, but dude, you do not need a milkshake. You don't need 2 milkshakes, a side of onion rings. Trust me. That's and Brian says they heard America will be at a 70% obesity rate by 2030. Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me. An unknown knows says soy percentage. Why they put soy in it? I have no idea. I just assumed it would be a milkshake, but hell, you never know. What is it, Dusty? You leaving? Dusty was hiding underneath me here. And Doc says they only go out to eat on special occasions anymore. Yeah, we rarely go out to eat. And quite frankly, the majority of the time, if we do, find myself disappointed. And I just find myself disappointed. Plus, it's expensive. It just doesn't seem like it's worth it. Nature Nerd says blizzards are the best. Chocolate extreme, brownie batter, or blizzards, or whatever the seasonal blizzard is. Monkey says Nauru is actually the most obese country in the world, 94% considered overweight or obese, with the rate being at 72%. And David Jones is here. Have a plain crazy weather sun war. Okay. But yeah. And you can see it too. If you go back and you look at old footage, look at beach photos from the 70s. You won't see one overweight person. Or look at old circus or sideshow posters. Circus or sideshow posters. I remember seeing one from the early 1900s billing a man as being the fattest man in the world. He might not have been, but they said he was. And, it's a sideshow. At something like 340 pounds. It seems to me like half the people walking around in the street are 340 pounds. Fluke Man is here. Unknown says fat asses like myself should read labels and minimize soy intake. Yeah, you don't eat a lot of soy. It's not good for you. It's got a lot of estrogen in it. And I know the argument is, oh, it's plant estrogen. It's not the same. It's similar enough. It's similar enough. Brian says it was right after the 70s that obesity rates started to skyrocket. We've talked about that before because that does, I did a paper on it for college. It coincides with the introduction of corn syrup and high fructose corn syrup into food manufacturing. Right when that started, within 2 years, we started seeing obesity in the United States as a epidemic, as it were. And Stacy says they eat a lot but don't gain weight, and I'm underweight. But I had that observation, off topic, as it were. And Sven is here. Glad you could make it. It was a bit off topic from what we normally do, but I just thought that was an interesting observation. Nature Nerd says Walmart is a miserable experience now at the self-checkout, put lines in even longer than the cashier lines, and there's traffic when you move your cart into the store. I did a short from a Walmart yesterday, and people are giving me a hard time. People gave me a hard time about the short, but that's what you expect when you do shorts. Any video you put up, anything on social media, but shorts in particular, because people have no attention span. But giving me a hard time. That Walmart, I forget what part of Georgia it was in, but it was fully automated. There were employees there, but not the registers. And people are saying, I can clearly see 3 registers in the background. And it's like, yeah, but they're not full service. They are self-service. Those are the new ones with you might have seen these. It looks like a traditional register. It has the conveyor belt and everything, but you're operating it. There's no cashier. That's what's in the background in that video. But yeah, I guess they were there. Oh my God. And this is a subject I'm going to pull up here. a subject I'm going to pull up here from the Columbus Dispatch, and that's Columbus, Ohio, talking about Biden, I almost said, Freudian slip, Obama and not Obama, I'm still doing it, Freudian slip, Biden, Joe Biden, President Biden and the Ohio ballot to explain what the hell that problem is or what's going on. Cruising says, as the resident fat ass, you both now have me craving a milkshake I don't need and having an urge to hide while consuming it so I won't be judged for the first dessert since Thanksgiving. Oh, you mean like that one girl in the high school from what is it? Highway to Heaven. Michael Landon's Highway to Heaven, and she goes into the donut shop and she was like, "Oh, well, Cindy wanted one of these and Erica wanted one of those," and because she's putting together a dozen, and then she sits in the car and eats the whole box because she made it up. Booger says it's almost cheaper to make homemade ice cream with rock salt than eat it from fast food. Everything in fast food is expensive. It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, we're going to explain or try to explain what the hell's going on with the Ohio ballot. And this is something they'll fix. They're not going to really keep Biden off the ballot. Columbus Dispatch. Will Joe Biden be on the Ohio ballot? What you need to know about the current situation. Okay. Say, calling it ridiculous that Ohio has yet to find a fix, to make sure President Joe Biden is on the November ballot. Governor Mike DeWine ordered lawmakers to return to Columbus this week and get it done. Ohio law requires candidates to be added to the ballot 90 days before an election, but the Democratic National Convention meets to nominate Biden after the deadline. Earlier this month, Ohio lawmakers hit a stalemate and failed to pass a law to change that deadline. The Senate passed a fix, but tacked on a provision to ban foreign money going to ballot issue campaigns. Democrats called the add-on a poison pill and a sore loser provision. They voted no, and the House opted not to take up the bill. Currently, Ohio is the only state in the country facing the prospect that voters won't be able to vote for one of the two major party candidates for president. The Ohio to be in session Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. The House is scheduled to be in session Thursday at 10 a.m. So basically, they've got some loophole in the law. The Democratic National Convention was late, which there's really no excuse for it. There's really no excuse, but late getting him on, and the Ohio law says, nah, if you're past the deadline, screw you. So then they're going to basically revise the rule. This is what they're calling for, a revision of the rule to make him eligible, even though they missed the deadline, and grandfather him in, as it were. Okay? Which most of the time, a new law doesn't make something like that retroactive, but they're going to make an exception in Biden's case, dear old sleepy old Joe. But then they wanted to add stuff, which is lawmakers are always doing this. And then opposition party was like, what are you adding stuff for? Now I'm not going to vote for this. This is a great example of a system that doesn't freaking work right here. Oh my God. Fluke Man says, is it true some places you serve yourself and they have the nerve to program the self-service checkout to ask for a tip? Pretty much. I've used the example of Steak and Shake. Some months ago, my wife and I dropped into a Steak and Shake. We just wanted to get like a grilled cheese sandwich and some fries. Something we do every once in a while for the hell of it. They're seasoned fries. And there's nobody there. No one greets you at the door anymore. There's no more wait staff. There's no cashiers. There's just kiosks. So you go and you program, you put in whatever you want in the kiosk. They get a picture menu in case you're a complete idiot. And you do that. And then it asks you for a gratuity. And I'm like, who am I tipping? There's no one here. There's some people in the back making the food, but they're putting it on a counter and calling a number, and I'm coming and picking it up. Hell, I'm clearing my own table even. No bus bus table. There's no bus staff, no waitresses, no door greeter or hostess, as it were, no cashier, nothing. But it's asking for a tip. So yeah, that's true, Fluke Man. Nature Nerd says in Washington State, one meal at a restaurant is close to $20. It's right with California and the highest minimum wages, and milkshakes are $5 to $7, which sucks. Yeah. As we move along here, Helter says they'll find a way to sneak Biden into the Ohio ballot, but not before wasting a ton of time, taxpayer money, and BS. Oh, and New York is here. New York is here. Glad you could make it. Basically, all they have to do is, like I said, they just need to complete a vote, which they've still got months to do it. They'll get it done eventually. It doesn't have to be done like tomorrow. They just want to get it over with because it shouldn't have happened in the first place, but that's the Democratic National Convention's fault. And Monkey says, can't wait till third party other option gets a lot of votes. Yeah, that'll happen. I'm waiting for it. Ralph Nader tried that. The last time that Ralph Nader, who was at that time the president of the Green Party or the head of the Green Party, he said that he knew he wasn't going to please go ahead and use his name as a none of the above option on the ballot, since there should be one there anyways. He still lost. Dragon says we cheat because we can't win fair. That pretty much sums up the Biden administration's modus operandi. Sure looks that way, doesn't it? And Doc Galt says the moment when government fails at what they really want, to be reelected. Yeah, I know. And Nature Nerd says when restaurants don't have cashier service is horrible. It doesn't help the businesses make any more money. And Cruising says forget having store locations. Time to just have a fast food vending machine set up around every place that people gather. Hey, that might be a viable option. That might be a viable option. And Stacy says, I know what you mean by places having no cashiers or anyone working. Why do you think these people or companies are so obsessed with technology and AI? What do you think about that? Yeah, of course. The employees are always the bottom line. Employees are always the bottom line. If you can eliminate employees, you save a lot of money, and not just from hourly wages. Not just because of hourly wages. You save a lot of money because you don't have to worry about insurance. You don't have to worry about liabilities. You don't have to worry about people not showing up for work or being late or calling in sick or anything like that. All of that costs the companies a fortune. You don't have to worry about training. You don't have to worry about getting sued. Nothing like that. You don't have to worry about any of those things if you don't have employees. So yeah, it would work perfectly. Monkey says they mean as in watch write-in get lots of votes now, remembering what the other choices are. Yeah, I don't even think there should be write-in ballots. I don't like all of that. I don't like that. I don't trust it. I've seen way too many videos of like people sneaking up to drop boxes at 3 o'clock in the morning and stuffing them. We don't know where those votes came from. We don't know who those people are. We don't know what that is. You can't trust that stuff. You can't trust that stuff, can you, little girl? Come here. Come here. Little girl, everybody. Popping in for a visit. Hi. Little girl, everybody. I knew a feline would show up sooner or later. I don't think she wants to hang around, though. She looks like she's on a mission. Go on. Anyways, this is something else that's popped up in the news and has become a big deal. And that's the Squad. The Squad at it again. And this is a Meow article. Yeah, Unknown says cats, yes. Well, actually, she's still sitting here, so she might have hung around a little bit longer, but I got the sense that she wanted to move around. Meow article, Squad members Ilhan Omar and Cori Bush delete their Memorial Day tweets after confusing holiday with Veterans Day. They, yeah, these are your representative squad members, folks. They can't tell the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Wow, she looks like a handful. That Bush woman, Cori Bush. Here we go. Representatives Ilhan Omar and Cori Bush, members of the Progressive Squad in the Congress, were forced to delete their tweets commemorating Memorial Day after they found a serious error in their message. According to the Daily Mail, the Congress women had advocated for housing and health care reforms for veterans, demanding that they get the treatment that they deserve in their marking the holiday, on Monday, May 27th. However, Memorial Day celebrates the lives of fallen soldiers and not those who are alive. Every year, November 11th serves as the federal holiday for veterans, also known as Veterans Day, during which the posts would have been more appropriate. Taking to X, formerly known as Twitter, on Monday, Omar wrote on #Memorial Day, "We honor the heroic men and women who served our country. We owe them more than our gratitude. They have more than earned access to quality mental health services, job opportunities, housing assistance, and the benefits they were promised," she continues, showing that she clearly missed the day being about deceased soldiers and was speaking for the ones that are still alive. Not only that, I mean, there's more to it. I'll give a minute. A similar gaffe was made by Bush in her post when she wrote, "This Memorial Day and every day we honor our veterans in St. Louis. We must invest in, guess what? Universal health care, affordable housing, comprehensive mental health services, and education and economic opportunities for our veterans as we work to build a world free of war and violence." Cute. Basically, they said the same thing. They just worded it differently. And it's all political talking points, which is all they really give a shit about. Trying to push comprehensive mental health services, which the VA already has. Education and economic opportunities, which the VA already has. I mean, sometimes it's a pain in the ass to get your benefits from the VA, but if you were honorably discharged, you can get it. Affordable housing. Yeah, the VA. Again, it's not always easy. It can be a pain in the ass, but that stuff's available. But these people wouldn't know that. These people wouldn't know anything about that, unfortunately. But they saw an opportunity to hit their political talking points and monopolize on Memorial Day, Veterans Day, whatever the hell they thought it was, to push their agendas. Affordable housing, healthcare. Okay. Sure. We're too stupid to realize. But, they were called on and they took their tweets down because they were embarrassed. The article goes on to say, as a congressperson or senator, you should be able to differentiate between major holidays like these and pass basic civics. Did they ever pass basic civics? Unbelievable. And Doc says, beautiful cat. Yes, indeed. She's a sweetheart, actually. She's a very, very well-mannered animal. Nature Nerd says, some Veterans Day, Ilhan Omar, loyal to Somalia. Yeah, what does she know about American veterans? Helter says it's possible that their paid staff members released that fumbled tweet, which means they're as good at hiring staff as they are at being congresswomen. I doubt they personally manage any of that. I mean, that's what you get interns for, right? Dragon goes on to say they are anti-American anyways. They don't care about these holidays or Americans. It sure feels that way, doesn't it? The fact that they acknowledge them at all is just to pander to voters. Nature Nerd says Omar will be pissed if Somaliland becomes a country, the functional part of that country. And Sven says the VA is a giant hole now. VA pays for illegals' health care. Democrats are so gross. Rhinos may be worse. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they are paying for illegals' health care. That's been a talking point. We've covered those stories before. It's a pain in the ass. But they're not doing it of their own volition, I'm sure. Again, those types of services are available from the VA, you just got to know how to get it. You just got to know how to get it. It's not always easy. It's not always easy to get your disability from them. It's not always easy to get what you earned or are entitled to, but it is there. It is there. But what do these people know about it? What do they know about it? They don't know anything. They don't know anything, and they don't really care either. I don't believe it. I think that for most of these politicians, senators, and representatives, everything is a talking point to try to look clever or to try to look like they care about something, and they don't. Those two women don't give a damn about American veterans. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. It was just an opportunity to sound like they care, to sound like it means something to them. But it's just words. It's just words. It's just a talking head situation. That's what a lot of these people do. Few of them mean it. And it's not that hard to find out exactly what the holiday is about. And it could be that they knew what it was about, but thought that they could drive their talking points through by pandering to veterans, or thought that they were, and ended up putting their foot in their mouth. Who knows? Maybe one day they'll be voted out. Maybe one day they'll be voted out. Yeah. Someone would have to run against them. Someone would have to run against them that people actually wanted. Again, AOC is a great example of that, because we talked about her before recently, that she has one person running against her who's also a Democrat that no one's going to take seriously because he's retired from Wall Street. He's going to be pictured as the bad guy because he's from Wall Street. Meanwhile, look how AOC behaves. Look what she does. Look what she panders to. Look how she votes. She shouldn't be doing the job. But who's gonna vote against her? If anyone even comes out to vote. I mean, the last cycle, no one even ran against her, I believe. Nature Nerd says, after what they said about 9/11, these congresswomen don't care about U.S. veterans. Yes, indeed. Following up again on something that we already read, and this is about the new saint that's being canonized by the Catholic Church. And this is the Irish News. This is an Irish News article, because I just wanted to follow up on it a little bit here, because we had read about it, and obviously what they're doing is shoehorning in this kid as a saint. You see his picture in the background here. This 15-year-old as a blogger, as a saint, to try to draw the interest of younger Catholics. Blatantly. I mean, they're not even denying this. So they're pushing through his canonization, which typically decades. You wait 30, 40 years. Not this kid. Again, Irish News. Carlo Acutis, set to be first millennial saint, draws crowds of thousands seeking a blessing from his down in Tyrone. And there is a relic for him, apparently, because I was wondering about this, but I couldn't find an article about it. Now I have something, and I can explain this a little better. A relic of the first millennial to be beautified, a teenager who loved Pokemon and his PlayStation and admired Apple co-founder Steve Jobs, has made another visit to Ireland, with thousands seeking its blessing in Down alone. It's the fifth time that the relic of Blessed Carlo Acutis, they're already calling him that, Blessed Carlo Acutis, 15 years old when he died from leukemia, has come to Ireland. The Italian teenager was beautified by Pope Francis in 2020, a recognition which highlighted the significance of his witness, particularly for the younger generation, demonstrating that holiness is attainable even in our modern world. A miracle involving the cure of a medical problem for a young Brazilian was ascribed to Carlos' intervention, the Pope says. On Thursday, the Vatican confirmed a second miracle has now been attributed to him involving the cure of a young woman from Costa Rica who had suffered a head injury, meaning that he will now become the Catholic Church's first millennial saint. I don't believe any of that. I don't believe any of that. I am very, very, I'm not optimistic at all when I hear about anyone claiming to have been faith healed. Faith healed. This is a statue of him. Here's his sainthood statue official with the little puppy and the soccer ball. For those of you who can't see this, I'll describe it really quickly. It looks like it's about a third scale, 1/3 scale, maybe about 3 feet tall. He's got one soccer ball and he's holding a Bible under his arm, and he has what look like headphones hanging around his neck. And there's a puppy sitting next to him. And that image right there reminds me of the movie Dogma, where they release the statue of the new friendly Jesus, and it's like a Jesus winking and holding up the peace sign. Some of you might remember. And what they're doing, and I'll show you this disc. This is what they do. You see a picture here, and I'll describe it again. There is a priest, and he's got a big cross with a disc on it, and he's putting it on this woman's forehead. That's the relic. And inside this disc, okay, I'll see if I can find a better image of it. All right. If you notice, there's like a round part on the back of the cross. Inside there, and I've seen the Catholic Church do this before, which is very pagan, by the way, there is actually a piece of that kid inside of there. If I remember correctly in trying to research this, since we read the original article, it's a piece of the lining shaved off of his heart after he died and encapsulated in the cross, which is something that Catholics do with and it's believed that coming in contact with that will heal people. And they're claiming these two people that you don't know, some woman in Brazil who had a head injury apparently, and someone else from Costa Rica. Two people that you'll never be able to confirm if they even exist, claim that they were miraculously healed by coming in contact with his quote relic. Nature Nerds has always wondered how to become a Catholic Church saint. And Chillin' Dave is here. Glad you could make it. Sven says the Vatican cannot figure out how to mess with kids, but a dead dude healed someone. That's the claim of a relic. If you come in contact with something that was a piece of someone who has and you claim to be healed, that can count as a miracle. And they're pushing that through as a miracle that he somehow healed one person's head injury. And I don't know if they said what the person from Brazil was supposed to have been healed from. It's all it says is medical problem for a young Brazilian. It doesn't tell you anything else. What medical problem? What was it? Prostate cancer? Oh, a young Brazilian, excuse me. Was it acne? I don't know what could have been wrong with this person. And the other one is a Costa Rican woman with a head injury of some sort. Again, I don't know who these people are. And you come in there and they take the thing. Here's a better image of it. The back of this, the priest is holding it up, and they put it on your forehead and they give you a blessing, and then you're fooled into thinking you were healed until you get sick again. Because sometimes that gives you an adrenaline rush. This is what a lot of faith healers will do. is it gives you this adrenaline rush and you think, oh yeah, I'm better now, I don't feel as bad, but then a few days later it settles back in. Helter says, doesn't the Vatican realize that kids' interests don't align with the interests of the current generation? The current generation aren't going to relate to Acutus's interests and hobbies. Yeah, well, I mean, look who you're dealing with. Helter says it would make a bit more sense if they were trying to pander to millennials of the 2000s. Nature Nerd says Catholic Church miracles are way more legit than the bogus charismatic churches in the U.S. And Sven says he's a millennial. Did he say, did you see D's relics? Yeah, D's, there you go. Chillin says God does heal and God does allow sickness for groups of people to add some relics in. Repetition chance, giving credit to anyone else other than God is suspect at best. And Doc says, sounds like the Catholic Church is turning into a cult. Yeah, well, they've done a lot of things that could be considered very pagan for centuries. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Praying to saints, and I explained this, praying to saints, and I explained this when we read the initial article. A Catholic apologist will explain that they're not praying to the saints, but they're beseeching the saints to pray on their behalf, same as you would beseech anyone to pray on your behalf. Okay? That's what that's what a Catholic apologist would say. That you're beseeching them to pray on your behalf. Like if you went to your minister and said, hey, could you pray for me? Or you went to your Bible study group, hey, could you pray for me? Right? Problem is that you're beseeching someone who's dead. You're beseeching a spirit to pray on your behalf, regardless of whether that spirit was someone who was a good person or not. That violates the Bible. That's a big no-no. You're not supposed to call on spirits. You're not supposed to. That's why it tells you don't no witchcraft, no minors, none of that stuff. All of it is supposed to be out. All that astrology and tarot cards and Ouija boards and all of that violates what's in the Bible. But that's what this is. And Michael Adams says, "Buddy Jesus," yeah, from Dogma. And Christos says, anthropologically speaking, all societies are a product of cults. Your culture is an expression of earlier cults. The question is, do you belong to an infanticide death cult? Excuse me. I almost read that incorrectly. But, and Chillin wants to know, is there a Catholic saint for the sewers? I wouldn't be surprised, because they've got thousands of them. And they just slammed this kid through canonization, because he skipped about 30 years at least for canonization based on essentially two alleged healings. And we don't know who these people are. Thank you, Sven. He says Ecclesiastes 9:5, the dead know nothing. So the Bible or the church is wrong. Well, I'm going to say it's the church. The dead know nothing because you're not supposed to talk to them. You're supposed to leave them the hell alone. Stay away from that. And you see a lot of that. You're seeing a lot of that modern form cultism in the Christian denominations as well, like the grave soaking. You've heard this, I'm sure, some of you, where they've got people laying on people's plots, and they're supposed to be absorbing information or knowledge or something. You're not supposed to be doing that kind of stuff. You're not supposed to be doing that kind of stuff. Plus, it's stupid anyways. I'm going to lay on top of a grave. That's like taking your textbook and putting it under your pillow and expecting all the answers to somehow seep into your head while you're asleep. And Doc wants to know if there's a patron saint of preppers. How about Joseph? Oh, Joseph from the Technicolor Dreamcoat. Yeah, the Technicolor Dreamcoat. Excuse me. Now I'm quoting the Broadway play, but Joseph from the Bible, who wanted Egypt to prep. He can be your patron saint of preppers. Or how about Noah? Christos says Catholics don't pray directly to the saints to intervene, but rather they're praying to saints to supplicate them with prayers. Those in the faith don't see saints as dead, but they are. And that's the problem. But the Independent, and this is something, Independent article coming up here, and this is something that a big pet peeve of mine, and that's people that are wrongfully incarcerated. Man sues after spending 12 years in prison for murder based on the testimony from a blind eyewitness. A blind eyewitness. Love it. A man convicted of murder based in part on testimony from a legally blind eyewitness is suing the city and the police department. A judge convicted Darian Harris in 2014 for the fatal shooting at a Chicago South Side gas station in 2011. He was 12 years into a 76-year prison sentence when he was freed in December after the exoneration project showed that the eyewitness had advanced glaucoma and lied about his eyesight issues. He was 30 years old when he went free. Oh my God. Harris filed a federal civil rights lawsuit in April alleging police fabricated evidence and coerced witnesses into making false statements. He told the newspaper he is still struggling to put his life back together. Quote, "I don't have any financial help. I'm still treated like a felon. I can't get a good job. It's hard for me to get into school. I've been so lost. I feel like they took a piece of me that is hard for me to get back." He'll never get it back. He'll never recover from that. Unfortunately, Harris was an 18-year-old high school senior when he was arrested for the June 7th, 2011 shooting that resulted in the death of a 23-year-old Rondell Moore. Moore had pulled into a gas station because of car trouble. He was with his older brother and a friend. A local mechanic was assisting as they put up the hood to inspect the problem when the shooting occurred. Moore was shot 3 times and died in a nearby parking lot. The mechanic suffered bullet wounds to his back and arm, but survived. Surveillance footage from the station did not show the shooting, but prosecutors said it did capture an individual walking away from a black Lexus and around the gas station towards the area where it happened. Then running moments later, his face was not visible in the video. Following a trial, it could be that he walked around there, heard the shooting, and ran, or saw bodies and ran. You know, that might cause a lot of people to panic, especially a high school kid. Following a trial in 2014, Harris was convicted of first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, and aggravated battery with a firearm. The judge had based his ruling primarily on the testimony of Dexter Saffold, the eyewitness who picked Harris out of a police lineup and identified him in court. Saffold testified he was riding his motorized scooter near the gas station when he heard gunshots and saw a person aiming a handgun. He added that the shooter bumped into him. During the trial, he was unaware that Saffold was legally blind, and his eyesight only came up briefly during his time on the stand, according to court records. Oh my God. I don't mean to laugh, but that is awful. Chillin' Dave says, "Aren't eyewitnesses blind? The ones I see talking to Congress got to be blind." And Helter says, "An apology and a shaking of hands is not enough. The man's going to have a hard time finding a job because his false criminal charge hasn't been expunged. It's not going to be easy to have the charge expunged. Even if he did, I mean, it's like coming from another planet when you've been in prison for that long. I mean, he served what, 14 years so far. He's not part of society anymore. He's not going to fit in with anything. It's going to be that's going to scar him for life. Dragon says the apology from the judge who oversaw the man's retrial lacks substance. The apology would be meaningful if it came from the judge who originally presided over his criminal trial. I don't know if that would matter either, because anybody can say I'm sorry. Anybody can apologize. Anybody can say the words, but do they mean it? I'd rather hear nothing from the judge than get a hollow apology because it's politically correct for him to do so. Same as any of these guys. The police, the mayor, whoever apologizes, like, I don't really give a damn if you apologize. Are you going to do it? Will this happen again? And the answer, unfortunately, is yes. Because they won't learn anything from it, and they're not going to be held accountable for the decisions. That's something, if his eyesight was brought up and they just kind of brushed it off, there's no excuse for it. The man was blind, legally blind. He could probably, if they're calling him legally blind, but he's on a motorized scooter, he probably lives locally. He probably lives right in that area. Odds are he can see shapes and forms and things like that. He could make out the shape of a person. He could see a blur, but he can't identify a person on sight. That's impossible. That's impossible. It says a message left on the city's law department main line is seeking comment Monday wasn't immediately returned. Of course not. The Associated Press has reported the department provides attorneys for the city, its department, and its employees. And it goes on to mention that the Exoneration Project has helped clear more than 200 people since 2009, including a dozen in Chicago's Cook County in 2023 alone. Good. And this is him. This is him. I bet you he got that really ugly neck tattoo in jail, which is not going to help him find a job. But yeah, he's a completely different person now. They don't know him now. They don't know who he is anymore. His family doesn't know who he is. He's not going to fit in anywhere. Hopefully he'll be smart enough to just keep to himself. There was a guy who used to come in to when I was the manager of the Family Dollar, there's a guy that used to come in there every day, and he said he had spent, I want to say, 24 years in prison. And he says all he did, or he told me at the time, all I do is I go to work, I stop by the store on the way home, and then I just go home, and I don't go anywhere else. I'm scared to death to go anywhere, and I've been out for 2 years. So yeah, he's not the same person anymore at all. Sven says they're supposed to automatically give people like this money in comparison to what happened to them. It's $100,000 a year, and it varies, and some states don't do it at all. But typically, it's $100,000 a year for every year of incarceration, wrongful incarceration. Usually, you have to sue for it, and even after you sue for it, they usually end up having to go to court again to get the state to enforce it. So they give these guys a real hard time about collecting wrongful incarceration dues like that. So yeah, he should be entitled, but he's going to have a really hard time getting it, especially in Illinois. Especially in Illinois. They're not going to make it easy. And like I had said, I've heard of people having to not only sue for what the state says they're going to do anyways, but having to go back to court again to force the county, city, state, whoever, to actually own up and start paying. So he'll be in court for years, 2 or 3 years. Doc says, my mother-in-law was legally blind. You're correct. She could only make out shapes and outlines, no definition. She had to be led around by the arm. Yeah. Especially with glaucoma, which often leaves like blind spots where all they see is like a black or a gray blob in certain spots when they look around, or they can only see through their peripheral vision. So it's yeah. that person should not have been a witness. But they wanted a conviction. They saw the guy running away on a camera again, and it didn't say in the article, plausible. He might have been walking by, heard shots, and was like, oh, hell, and ran off. Or saw people laying there and was like, oh, not me, I'm leaving. Get me the hell out of Dodge. Because who wants to be involved? Most people would probably take off. Hell, he could have stood there and got on his cell phone and called the police, and they still would have accused him. Unknown knows says a guy got pardoned but had to sign a contract saying he couldn't demand money even though he was SA'd in prison and was infected with HIV. Ooh. Oh no. That was someone who was desperate to get the hell out of there. And that's coercion, though. I would try to countersue that as coercion. I bet you could pull it off and get a good attorney. It would take a few years, but he could claim he was coerced, and they could get that reversed. Another pet peeve article of mine, another pet peeve subject on the next article from the Associated Press. Massive wind farm proposal in Washington state gets new life from Governor Jay Inslee. Another wind farm, and some of you have seen already the video on Coffee Talk not too long ago talking about the power grid in the United States and where all of our power is coming from. With, what was it, 1,000 solar farms and something like 800 wind farms producing roughly 2% of the nation's power, while 400 coal plants, I think, what was it, 900 gas-powered plants and 81 or 82 nuclear plants make up the rest of it. Oh, excuse me, hydroelectric, 7%, I remember. So very little coming from hydroelectric. But the whole point of that entire video showcasing we have more wind and solar farms than basically all other forms of power generation combined. And they're producing 2% or less of the power that's on the grid, yet we still keep feeding into this. We continue to build more solar and wind farms, saying it's clean energy and it works, and it clearly doesn't work. Plus, it's insanely expensive. So here we go. Olympia, Washington. Governor Jay Inslee on Thursday rejected a recommendation to cut a proposal for what would be the state's largest wind farm in half by giving new life to the $1.7 billion project. Plans for the Horse Heaven wind farm originally included 222 turbines across 24 miles of hillsides, and that's 38.5 kilometers for those of you overseas, in the Tri-Cities area of eastern Washington, plus 3 solar arrays covering up to 8.5 square miles. But last month, Washington's 7-person Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council, God, that's a mouthful. The Washington's 7-person Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council. Do they have an acronym for that? A clearinghouse for permits required by large projects recommended slashing the proposal in half because nests of the endangered Pharyngeus hawk were found in the area. Inslee on Thursday rejected the council's recommendation and told the group to reconsider in hopes of expanding the project closer to its full potential. A Democrat who is not seeking re-election after 3 terms in office, Inslee has sought to make climate initiatives key to his legacy. So the key to his legacy is wasting taxpayer money on worthless projects that over time are going to cripple this country. Again, there are more solar and wind farms in the United States, which are highly vulnerable and very expensive to operate. More solar and wind farms in the United States than coal, natural gas, and nuclear combined, yet they only produce roughly 2% of the power output on the grid. Am I wrong here? And I used when I did the the video on that, I used the government's own website, the US government's own data in that video to make my points. Sven says the wind and solar farm destroy our ability to grow food. The green power people are anti-planet. Doc Galt says he spoke to a guy that works on the windmill towers. He told him that each one of those towers has 100 gallons of oil to lubricate the windmill. And it probably has to be replaced constantly, too, as those turbines wear out. And they break down and they catch fire. And they can't be recycled. You got to bury it. When they pull those things apart, when they fail, or the parts have to be replaced, those turbines got to be buried. There's no recycling it. Back to the article real quick. It says, since the wind farm project was proposed in 2021, it has pitted local opponents against the state's ever-growing need for renewable energy. In a letter to the Site Evaluation Council, Inslee noted that Washington's energy demands could nearly double by 2050. As for those in the area who don't want to look at the turbines, he said that's not enough of a reason to reject the project outright. How about the fact that it kills birds? Quote, it is clear that the turbines will be visible only from a distance and none of the turbines will loom over anyone's home, he wrote. It doesn't matter. You're putting them up in wildlife areas and they're a hazard to those animals. They're a hazard to those animals. Unknown Nose says fiberglass. Yeah. They can't recycle that shit. Fiberglass and whatever else is in there, because it's not only fiberglass. There's other materials that are mixed with it. And another video, you all know, some of you have seen it, that I did a couple of weeks ago, the fact that plastic basically can't be recycled. And they've been lying to us for 50 years about recycling plastic. Most plastic can only be recycled once, and then it has to be disposed of because it becomes too toxic to be viable. Or the cellular structure of it breaks down too much for it to be viable, and it's too weak for use. So most plastic ends up in landfill anyway. You send it to the recycling plant, they shred like 95% of it and put it in the dump anyway. We've been lied to for decades, and it's cost us hundreds of billions of dollars. These projects too, they're lies. If it worked, I wouldn't have a problem, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and that's why I keep harping on it. If you perfect it and it works, okay, well, I'll have nothing to say. What can I say if it works? Perfect it first, then introduce it. Don't force something on us that is not working because you want to be at the forefront of some agenda, because you want to be on what you believe is going to end up being the right side of history. And all you're doing is wasting billions in taxpayer dollars and further harming the environment, actually. Sven says the group called Additional Solar Subdivisions, or ASS for short. There you go. And New York says nuclear fusion is the future of energy production. Fusion does not create any long-lived radioactive nuclear waste. It's still dangerous, but at least it's more productive. I think, what was it? There's 81 or 82 nuclear plants operating in the United States, and they're contributing 20% to the power grid. So it is the most efficient out of the basic groups, being natural gas, coal, wind, solar, which shouldn't even be on the list, hydroelectric, which again was 7%. So hydroelectric was 7%, wind and solar were 1% each, roughly. Burning oil, less than 0.5%, because some places still have oil burning plants. Nuclear was 20 with 81 or 82 plants, and then the coal and natural gas burning plants made up the whole rest of the grid by themselves. So there you go. But with that, we are at the top of the hour. So I'm going to go ahead and start signing off here. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and please do find me on YouTube on at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. Find me there. You can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, and that is at Coffee Talk Chat, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. The live portion on YouTube takes place at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you're listening and you wanted to join. So with that, I will say thank you to everyone who's able to join us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation, and